All right, what's up? Welcome back to the Northern Illinois Wrestling Podcast. Today, we are joined by Nelson Baker from Rochelle High School. Um, I wanted to have you on, kind of recap a little bit of the season, talk about the team state. You guys made it down to Bloomington to wrestle in the team state tournament. But yeah, it's been yeah, I feel, and I'm not even a wrestling coach right now. I feel finally like I've started to slow down. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I mean, I keep telling people that it's all right for something to be good and bad at the same time. Like it's bad and it's, sad that the wrestling season's over and that, everything that you push for finally comes to fruition and, or it doesn't and, you get back to the grindstone. But, it sucks that it's over, but it's also really nice for me to just be able to go home after school. I can walk my dog. I can, find out how my wife's day at work was and, you know, it's good and bad. So, but with my involvement with wrestling, it's about a 2.5, 3 week break, and then we get right back into it. So, now we've got some time to focus on the kids club stuff. We got IKWF sectionals coming up and IKWF state, and got a couple kids doing some fresh soft stuff, and but it's a lot slower. The grind and the mental energy that is spent on wrestling for me certainly has taken it down a notch. I will agree with your sentiment that it has started to slow down finally.
Yeah. Now, so what was the qualifier number for the high school state tournament? Was it
From
five?
Rochelle, we had five. Yeah, four on the boys' side and then one on the girls' side.
Okay.
And
But
three of
so
which.
four going down to boys state
Mhm.
and two placed.
Yep.
Um, Gensler and who was who was the other one that didn't place?
It was Gensler and Metzger that didn't
Okay,
play.
so Gensler and Metzler didn't place.
Mhm.
But what year are those two?
Gensler's a junior and Brock Metzger was a senior. So
Okay, so Brock is moving on,
yep.
um, returning, and then your two placers, Caden Morris
Mhm.
and Xavier Villalobos.
Yep.
One was a state finalist,
Hmm.
and Caden Morris was a runner-up at 215. Um, and yeah, that's pretty cool. There was some exciting matches down there. How did the state tournament kind of, I guess, yeah, just your experience from it because
Yeah, dude.
it was a fun one. It was a
It's
lot of
super fun. You hope that, kids get rewarded for their hard work. And obviously in a sport like wrestling, that's not always guaranteed. So it's really cool to see, as many as four go down to the state tournament. Last year we were fortunate enough to have five go down to the state tournament. So a couple years ago, and I think the year before that we had three that had tied the school record. Last year we broke the school record, and this year, we sent four back down and a girl for a total of five. Like it's really cool that they get the opportunity to compete at that level. And it's also really cool for them to understand, guys like Xavier and Caden and Grant and Brock too are starting to learn that at that highest level, that we're wrestling at right now in the state of Illinois, it's not necessarily who is better or worse of a wrestler. It's who shows up on that given day or even that given match. You could see a guy
yeah.
that shows up in the morning and he doesn't look too great. And then he shows up the next round and looks lights out. It's to the point where you stop comparing scores and you stop realizing like, oh, this guy got beat 3-2 by this guy and I beat him 4-1. So I should on paper, like they
Yeah,
finally
wrestling math.
realize that all of that goes out the door.
Yeah.
So
Well, I definitely think it's I mean, they still most of these kids, a lot of these kids still think about that stuff, but the ones that have that awareness of like just controlling what they can control, go out there and compete hard,
yeah.
stay in the positions that you want to stay in, avoid the ones that you don't want to be in, um, and then yeah, some of these kids are really matched up equally, and you don't really know how the match plays out. It's not entirely up to everybody, but it is impressive to see the ones that consistently bring the same result.
Yeah.
That is pretty impressive. There's a few kids that I paid attention to at the state tournament that were just lights out, very consistent. But
Yeah.
um, yeah,
And you
so
start
then
to Yeah,
go
you
ahead.
start to see that those kids are the ones that are putting themselves in those positions more often. They're the
Yeah.
ones that are wrestling at a high level often. They've got practice partners that can push them. They're familiar with tournaments. They're familiar with the lights. They're very, very comfortable with their style of wrestling, right? Especially those ones that stay so consistent. They're comfortable even being in those close matches, even though they seem close in their brain. Sometimes that's how they want them. I will say that was not my style of wrestling. I did not like the close matches, but I think you're seeing high school wrestling at the highest of levels start to emulate college in a lot of ways. To which, the highest of highs are extremely, extremely offensive and are scoring a whole bunch of points. But a lot of the really good kids too are not beating everybody by 100 points. They're consistently winning 5-1, 4-1, 3-2, 5-2, something like that. But those matches really aren't even close. You know, I look at a guy like Montini's 126 pounder who had a 3-2 match with Xavier Villalobos, our 26 pounder. He was the runner up at 126, and he won, I think, first round by a couple points. He won in the quarterfinals 1-0. He won in the semifinals 3-2 in the ultimate tiebreaker, and then just wrestled our guy who had taken fifth 3-2. Like, he just is comfortable in those positions. And at a certain point, you got to stop thinking that, everybody's catching him and just realize that's the style that he wrestles and he's really comfortable being in those matches. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see the dynamics,
Yeah.
to say the least.
Well, talking about Montini, so you guys made it to team state. So you had team sectionals the Tuesday following state. You win a duel against Yorkville Christian. How did that duel meet go?
Dude, it was really close. I mean, we were down some
And
guys.
it was at Rochelle too.
Yeah,
So
it was
the
at Rochelle. We were down some guys. Some guys had some weight issues. Some guys had some injuries. And I was not feeling super great about it. I thought that it was going to be a toss up. I knew that it was going to be really close. And fortunately for us, they also were kind of banged up. They had some guys at the exact same weight that we had weight issues also have weight issues. So those two things kind of, were a wash, and I could never have predicted that. But, it came down to, the last match we were up by 6, and Roman Villalobos had a really, really tight match. He ended up pulling it out with maybe a second or two. We would have won even if he would have gotten pinned on criteria due to Yorkville Christian giving up forfeits. We had a duel that came down to criteria earlier in the year. And I thought the first criteria, so long as there were no unsportsmanlike stuff, was number of pins, and it is not. That is a second criteria. If either team has given up any forfeits, the team that gives up the most forfeits automatically loses on criteria. So they had given up 2. So I knew that we were going to win that going into that last match, but it didn't make it any less dramatic for everybody else that didn't know that. So, but I mean, honestly, when you get to like I say, when you get to that level, when we're down to the top 8 teams or the top 10 teams, whatever you're down to by the time sectionals roll around, like, it is about matchups, and it is about, which side the coin lands on to, what happens. And unfortunately, a turning point that happened in that duel, and you never feel good about it. We had our 132 pounder wrestling up at 138. We had bumped him up. He didn't blow weight or anything. Wrestling a pretty good 138 pounder from them. And in the first 15 seconds, they both dropped to both shoot a double. Heads collided, and that kid, went out. And that was a match that I was thinking that, we would
Oh,
be
really?
really fortunate to win in the first place. And if not win, we needed to hold it to a 3-point decision for them. And then it turned into, 6 for us. That was a big, big swing. And like I said earlier, it's okay for something to be good and bad. You never wish that on somebody, obviously, especially when it comes to the head. You don't want a kid to
Yeah.
have stuff that goes on, but, our kid didn't mean to do it. And at the end of the day, that may have been the deciding factor in that duel. So props to Yorkville Christian for being as tough as they were. I'm close with some of their coaches, and they had even said coming in that they thought that they didn't have a chance in the world, and they came out and they wrestled lights
Yeah.
out. They're guys that they put out on the mat, wrestled hard. I think they probably won more matches than we did, but the wins that we had were just pins. And, obviously when you give up some forfeits like Yorkville Christian did, it's tough to overcome
Yeah.
that. But yeah,
What is funny
it's just
though
the
is
luck of the draw, and, it
what's
is what it
funny
is.
though is about coaching is like you the weight stuff is so funny to me. Again, in my final years of coaching at the high school stuff, like you start to like if you don't just again, relax and calm yourself because you can't control all those things. You can
Hmm.
try to run around like whack-a-mole and make sure that everybody's kids. Let me check your weight. Let me check your weight. Let me check your weight. Everybody get on 3 times. Let me check. Stay away from the water, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. But it's just something that happens, and yeah, it's kind of ironic. I mean, it's interesting that it happened to both teams at the same time, but
Yeah.
uh, that's the stuff. I think that would be funnier to to have people privy to. Like if everybody could get a text message, so and so's overweight, they'd be like, oh, what's gonna happen? It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Um,
And too,
but
as a coach, like you said, it's hard to navigate that stuff because, in my inner brain, like every part of me wants to be Mr. Hard Ass because, I was always that way. I was always, I had trouble managing my weight, but always made it and did these types of things. And, you realize that today, like, it is really not okay to really be on a kid and berating him hourly about his weight and what he's eating and what he's doing and how hard he should be working out. Like, it's a fine balance. You hope that they manage it themselves, but also, like, there is a certain extent where it's got to be them. You could check and
yeah, I think
you could work out with them all you want, but
well, so at the end of the day, like as you continue to build a culture, the teammates will actually help more than anything.
mm,
I mean, if it's just an expectation of how to do it,
yeah,
how to lose weight, how to manage weight, I think the team stuff is more about communicating and having clarity as to um, what weight somebody is comfortable and confident with making consistently throughout the year,
yeah,
and then on top of that, having a open dialogue about like, all right, if somebody's struggling with it, like how the process, like throughout the season, all right, because a lot of I'm not a big proponent of the season now. As I get older, I just look at like most of these kids are growing, like the logic behind them starting at one weight and then finishing at one weight over 5 or 6 months just does not make sense to me.
yeah,
um yeah, they can do it, yeah, of course they can do it, but um you could also just go up 5 pounds, right? So in a perfect world you just have such a big team and so many capable athletes where you could move the lineup around and you wouldn't have to worry about it. So if a kid starts moving up to a next weight class, you're all right, I'm just going to fill in with somebody else.
hmm,
um so yeah, I think, I don't know, it's a hard thing to manage, especially at high school with the limited number of athletes too, and knowing that like you want to change the culture to be positive when it comes to weight cutting. So you don't want people to continue the what they did at the youth level. You want to do a little bit more professional, but even professional is hard to do because you don't know what kids are eating at home. You don't know, even at school, it's hard to manage your weight because of the availability of quality food.
yep,
A funny story, when I was in high school, I used to just eat apples at lunch. So I would just eat apples. Everybody would get an apple or whatever, and I'd be like, "All right, let me get your apple." I'd eat like 5 apples. And my science teacher pulled me to the side once and he was like, "I don't think it's good that you just eat apples." And I'm like, "Well, that's all I'm eating is apples. I'm making weight. Like this is what I'm eating." And then what's ironic about that whole situation is like looking back at it now is like he wanted me to eat food that wasn't nutritious at all because most of school lunch is not.
yeah,
So it was just, you know, it's not the easiest and simplest thing to do it at a professional level. That's why like at a public school with a lot of kids, you just kind of have to roll with the punches and hope for the best, and the universe will send you to state if you're meant to go to state.
exactly. And then to that tune, we ended up beating Yorkville Christian and going on to the state tournament. And we had known for a long time that should we get the win there, at team sectionals, that we'd be faced with the winner of ICCP and Montini, and you just got to live with that. And I think we all kind of knew, and we never really articulated it with the kids. We kept working hard. We kept, building
Yeah.
up, having the same type of practices, but everybody kind of knew that that was an uphill battle. Um, but our kids went out and scrapped and they stuck their nose in there. I think we ended up losing like 56-22 first round at state. But won the matches that we could win. Had a lot of really competitive matches too in between those matches that we could win. And I think we were able to leave that arena with our our heads high knowing that, you know, even though you always want to win, it was a really, really successful season with a whole bunch of a whole bunch of individual accomplishments with all our state qualifiers and the state medals. And we won a conference championship. Our JV team won a conference championship. Um, we had a record of like 24-6, I think, maybe 24-7 as a team. Like it was, it was a good way to end the season. So,
Yeah.
but now that was only the second time that our team had ever made it to state in school history. So that was really cool. And now the bar has kind of been set. Our kids have been down there. I anticipate for the next foreseeable future that we're going to have a pretty consistent and strong program. And, now maybe it's not so wide eyed like, man, these are really cool to be wrestling down here on these blue and orange mats. And, oh, we've got Montini. We probably can't really beat Montini, but it's cool to be down here. Now it's like, yeah, we've been here before. That little honeymoon period with being state qualifiers is over. Now let's get down here and let's win some matches. And, the way that the IHSA does it is it's always kind of the luck of the draw. For us, a program like Rochelle, where it's at in its, I don't want to say infancy because it's been a long time coming
Yeah.
with the coaches that we've had before. But, in the area that we're in, I'll say no matter how good your team is, really the stars have to align twice in order for you to come home with a state trophy. And one of those stars aligning means we're not drawing Washington at team sectional because as everybody got to see, Washington come February is the most dangerous team in the state of Illinois, right? It doesn't matter if you're Montini. It doesn't matter if you're JCA. It doesn't matter if it's in the state finals. It doesn't matter if it's in the team sectionals. They are a really, really dangerous team. So no matter what year it is, no matter how good a team in this area is, if you're facing off against Washington at team sectionals, you better be ready to go. And if you're not, you're staying home. So fortunately for us, the stars aligned this year and we didn't have to get through them at team sectionals. And then the stars also have to align once you get down to state that you get a match that is winnable. I've always taught, our kids that, you got to be good and lucky, or you be the best and you don't have to get lucky, and
Yeah.
right now our team is probably, when I look at the team state bracket, if we assume that, IC still isn't in the team bracket because they got beat by Montini, of the 8 teams that were at state, I think we're probably the 4th, 5th, maybe 6th best team in that bracket. Now, were there teams there that we could beat? Maybe, right? And we could get lucky and get one of them first round, but there were also teams there that were, really, really tough. Like Washington, obviously, we're probably not beating. Montini, we're probably not beating. Chatham Glenwood, I think, is competitive, but we're probably not beating. Wakanda, I think, is a competitive duel.
Yeah. And
You
that's
know,
really just, you're talking this year.
exactly this year. I'm saying like
But
the stars
program
needed to
wise,
align for
right
us
there.
to end up coming home with a trophy, and they aligned once to get us down there, and they didn't align for that second time. So,
Yeah.
when
Well,
when
again,
you are that
the
4th or 5th or 6th best team, you got to hope the stars align.
yeah. And just watching Hananiga as well. Like it's not it's again, I think just putting yourself in the position that you can and you
Hmm.
just do whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the sport is so focused on individual
Yeah.
that the team is kind of just a like I don't know, a honeymoon. It's a icing on the cake. It's like, hey, we had a good season. I had a good, like again, I talk about this, there's a lot of kids that have a really good season and then, you know, they have to continue it. So sometimes it's like not the easiest weekend. And then
Yeah.
there's other kids that didn't get what they wanted and they want another opportunity to prove themselves.
Yep.
So it's just another weekend of competition and yeah, it's good that the program sees that and stuff. And you guys obviously, luckily that you kept reaching out to me this year to kind of cover Rochelle and stuff. But it was fun to cover you guys this year because of just the things that were happening and the success that you guys had. Obviously, um, you know, from my perspective and from Northern Illinois' perspective, it's like you guys were the second most accomplished team in the area. So
Hmm.
it's pretty cool to, again, success breeds the conversation and hopefully the culture continues to grow from here and stuff. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's cool, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that it shows, and I think one thing that we've really got going for us is community support. The community's backing us, and like you said, that team state kind of seems like a honeymoon thing, and I would really agree with that. As a coaching staff and as athletes, I think we really push the individual stuff, and then the team stuff will happen if it happens. But one thing that I always kind of it exists in the back of my head is what it looks like to the community, right? The community sees that the wrestling team is going to state, and that's, right, to
Yeah.
them, I think is a lot bigger of a deal than maybe it is to us sometimes, but it's cool. I am all for
Yeah.
extending the wrestling season and having more success and getting more matches. So
Yeah, I definitely think I don't know. I like, just thinking about what you just said, like I know a lot of people, like the community can connect with that, but like individuals, it seems like, somebody knows somebody that knows
yeah,
somebody and say, "Hey, you heard that kid?" I mean, Caden Morris got second in the state. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. And I'm sure that will just as much be something that permeates through the town to know more about wrestling and stuff. So,
yes, absolutely.
um, but yeah, so great season, um, all finished, and now to the off season and stuff. And um, how are you? You're gonna get into freestyle and Greco stuff, right?
Yeah, you bet, man. Now the real season starts. I keep telling all my buddies I don't get to see all my my 3A freestyle and Greco guys that I spend all my springs and summers with until really that like state and team state weekend. So it's been cool. The thing that we keep saying, and it's just like an inside joke between all of us, is like, it's only a month till the real season starts. So I'm really looking forward to freestyle Greco specifically. I mean, I don't really with grad school right now, I make sure that we schedule our freestyle practices on the days that I go to grad school anyway, so the other coaches can
Oh,
handle that. But man, Greco, I am so excited to get ready to rip here.
well, great. That's should be a fun little transition for you, and
Yeah,
we'll try to figure out how to keep talking about what you guys got going on and stuff. And yeah, I just wanted to catch up.
yeah, man,
Um, thanks for the chat. Go get your haircut, and we'll catch up soon.
absolutely, dude. Thanks for having me.